Welcome to the very first episode of Unveiled Local Hidden Gems, the podcast, where we uncover the best kept secrets and unforgettable experiences in the Midwest. My name is Elena J, and if you love discovering unique places, off the beaten path adventures, and stories that bring local culture to life, then you're in the right place. For our debut episode, we couldn't think of a better guest than Shaun Johnson from the a cappella group Tonic Sol-Fa. For 30 years, they've been a Midwest music treasure, from selling over 2 million CD copies to being the first a cappella group signed by a major record label, and even being inducted into the Minnesota Music Hall of Fame alongside Prince. Tonic Sol-Fa has had an incredible music career. Now, as they embark on their end of an era tour, we get the chance to hear firsthand about their journey, the hidden gems they've discovered along the way, and what's next. Shaun, welcome, and thank you for being our first guest on our first episode.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor. What an introduction. I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, you guys have done a lot. And, you know, it's kind of crazy. This moment is a little bittersweet. It's the end of an era after 30 years. Is this really your final tour?
You know, there are definitely groups that go on and on and on. They have a final tour for 10 years. But yeah, I think this is it. We had taken a little bit of a break in 2022. So we've been off the road for the last 2 years as Tonic Sol-Fa. And we had an opportunity to work with someone in the Midwest who said, hey, let's bring it back for a couple shows. And that was of interest to me, and I brought it to the guys. And so we're definitely going to do at least a handful of shows in the Midwest in some of our favorite cities.
Yeah, it's crazy. So originally you were planning to do 4 shows in 4 states, but your fans, they had something to say about that, right?
Well, you know, we're still close, but we did always want to do another show in St. Cloud, Minnesota, because it's where we started.
Yes.
And so that was something that we added ourselves. One of the shows sold out in, I think, 2 days. So we added a second one to that. And we do have some people that have asked us to come to, I think, Seattle, Cheyenne, you know, random places. But I don't know if we're going to do those or not currently. So it was just an idea to go, hey, let's at least do a handful of shows that a lot of the people in the main region that we toured most of the time could come and see.
Yeah. So, you know, it's crazy because I was thinking back. I saw Tonic Sol-Fa when I think I was like 8 or 9 years old. You guys were my introduction to a cappella. I remember going with my family, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I remember you did this Lion King song. Was it Hakuna Matata? Is that the one you did or used to do?
Oh, my gosh. You did see us in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. It was actually, people would always ask you to do traditional a cappella songs. And one of them that so many people did was The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Oh, there we go.
And we had heard so many people do it, but we thought, well, how could we do this in our own way? And for whatever reason, we were on a trip to Louisville, Kentucky, one of our very first shows, and we decided to figure out what we could do with that particular song for a college showcase. And one of the guys who was in the group just for a very short time, he said, why don't we do like the Muppets version? And we're like, what? And so he started doing like Kermit the Frog singing The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Well, then someone else joined in and did Miss Piggy, I think at the time. Someone did Animal because they didn't really have an impression, so they would just kind of, you know, growl or whatever Animal does when he's banging on the drums.
Yeah.
And so it turned into, I don't know if this is going to be something that just the 4 of us appreciate, or if this is going to be something that would go on. So we actually did it for years here and there in the show. But to be honest, I don't think we've done it in the last 15.
Oh, crazy.
So it's one of those things where you're like, oh my gosh, that you literally did see us in the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. I remember it was in Grand Forks. You guys were just, you know, stopping by, and my family was like, let's go to the show. And I remember Mustang Sally. That was another one you guys performed.
Wow, did we?
I'm pretty positive. Yeah. It's crazy. The memories that come back as I was thinking about it. I'm like, I remember just jamming out to it. And that's what I love about your shows, is that it's family friendly.
Yeah, it was always that way. I don't even know if it was a conscious choice really, but I think just how we were all probably raised, and it was just a natural thing. And I think as we went, it made more sense because we started doing so many schools, and we were doing a lot of theaters where they said, hey, you know, we got to make sure that this works for everyone. So we never really had to worry about it. It wasn't something that we actually, though, sat down and said, okay,
yeah.
Nobody say dang, right? we just kind of, I think, fell into that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, mentioning the end of an era tour, you mentioned the St. Cloud show that was just announced. Looking back at your history, St. John's Prep is kind of where it started. And I was kind of reading too, I thought you were there in the very beginning, but you joined about 5 years after the start. I read too that you lived in St. Cloud for a while too. But kind of thinking back to those early days and what it means for you to return back to St. Cloud for this final tour, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's so cool. It's our first show of the tour, so I think that's the perfect way, just because it was the first kind of cool theater that we were in. I think when you started, like any group or like any business, you would just kind of do a little meeting here, or you would go to a school in the afternoon and sing in a gym or whatever it might be. And I want to say St. Cloud was one of the first, like, kind of beautiful theaters we did. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I mean, in the last years, it's kind of all you do is theaters. Mm-hmm. But at the time, it was so rare. You would do a county fair, you'd do a college pub. And so being in a theater like the Paramount in St. Cloud was just something that not only was it cool then, but it still is. And yeah, you're right about all of us meeting at St. John's. That was where it started. And it did start before me. I'm not sure exactly how long before me, but one of my roommates who was in it eventually said, hey, we're just kind of doing these things locally, and I know you like to sing. I know you're going to go to law school, but would you decide to like join us as a fifth member? And so I did go to St. John's, and I lived in St. Cloud for most of my actually adult life. I'd split my time between St. Cloud and Nashville.
Oh, wow.
And so I just kind of would always split my time between the two because I wrote a lot of songs and just kind of worked with a lot of people in Nashville. I fell in love with that sort of part of the world too. And I would just kind of come back and forth between touring a cappella and writing songs.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Midwest clearly loves you. We could see even with the Burnsville show, Minnesota especially loves you. That Burnsville show sold out, you said, within 2 days. You added another show. St. Cloud, wouldn't be shocked if that sells out too once tickets go on sale here soon. But, looking back throughout your long journey, different milestones, is there a specific place that you've performed, maybe a show, a venue, a city that just kind of comes to mind as one of those amazing moments for you?
Yeah, I think that, there's so many. And if you ask the guys, I think everyone would have a different idea. But some of it wasn't necessarily like the biggest things. It wasn't like, I remember doing a show for like 26,000 people. And it was one of those, like one of the biggest shows I ever did. But honestly, I don't really remember that much about it comparative to like a small club in West Virginia where it was packed and they'd been waiting for days and everyone was dancing and you sang 10 songs more than you thought you were going to. And, sometimes that kind of thing is more of a memory. And some of the things that you made work. I remember when we were touring in colleges and we would go to a lot of colleges all over the whole country when we were first starting. It was really how we began. And 10 people would show up, 12 people would show up because they don't know who you are in Kentucky, or they don't, necessarily care if you're at the Rathskeller in Ohio or whatever it might be. So we thought, how can we build this faster? And that's like a good memory for me of shows is we would go to all of these random universities like 4 or 5 hours early. We'd get up early, we'd drive to the place, we'd find someone who could take us to all of the residence halls, or at least a couple of them if the university or school was huge. And we would go and like literally knock on doors and say, are you coming to our show tonight? And people would be like, who are you? What are you doing? And we would sing in the hallway. We'd sing for them. And it was so funny. You could always tell who was going to come because some people go, yeah, maybe. You're like, oh, they're never coming.
Yeah.
But then so many people were like, who else comes and visits and like says, come to our show personally? And we'd always say that, like, who else is going to do this? And so at our shows, it didn't like sell them out, but you would have double the amount of people of most of the acts that visited every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or, however much they programmed. And so I remember at the end of the first year, we were suddenly nominated for like Contemporary Artist of the Year, Entertainer of the Year, or something on the college circuit. And everyone's like, oh man, you guys are so popular. But it has nothing to do with popularity. It was just literally us going to every school early. And then afterwards, when they'd say, oh, do you want to go eat? We ate at like, because after the show, the only thing open is a truck stop or a Denny's. And so we'd have like Moons Over Miami every night, and we'd talk to whoever it might be. And those personal connections and that extra work was the reason some of that started and some of those things. So it's not necessarily a show in all of those years. It was more like, I think just what we had to do to get people to those shows. And that sometimes is more of what I remember, like the things around. I think there's somewhere in there 5 years I've lost. So I don't know. I think at some point some people are like, 10 years ago, what were you doing? I'm like, gosh, what was I doing 10 years ago? I think I was, in Boston part of the time. But I think sometimes it all runs together. But I do have shows like where no one showed up and we sang to like the kitchen custodial and kitchen sort of staff. And I remember shows where, we didn't know what to expect, and it was just an amazing thing. So many times people wanted to get married during our shows. They wanted to ask, and that was crazy. And it all worked great until one random night. And something happened that the person, I won't go into the long story, but the person said, like, shook her head and kind of was like, no. And we'd never really considered the fact that someone might not agree to marriage.
Oh, yikes.
And at that point, it was an orchestra hall in the Twin Cities. And it was during a show. I was probably 2/3 of the way back talking to this guy who'd said, I really want to propose. And I never expected someone to say no. So then the whole timbre of the show sunk to a level, because then we're like, hey, after this person. It turns out they did get married, and she was just so nervous. She was shaking her head no. Like, I don't know what to say.
That makes sense.
After that, we never did that again because we're like, none of us had thought this could happen. So, I always remember that show, but it was the time where we're like, maybe let's not have any more engagements at a time of the show.
Yeah, you never know. I love that. I love that you talked about, connecting with people. And, with Unveiled Local, that's the whole thing, is we want to connect more with community. With the pandemic, it just seems like people lost connectivity. In-person stuff.
For sure.
So, with Hidden Gems, we're all about spotlighting the lesser-known places, cool experiences. Now, when you're on tour, do you have chances to kind of explore the cities that you're in?
We didn't as much when we started, in that we would do so many shows. You're trying to build a brand in whatever size and whatever way you want to do it. And our thing was just to have a career in music. So it wasn't ever like the goal to be like, oh my gosh, we gotta, be huge in Norway, or we have to be famous, or we were just like, how could we have a career in music? Because we all love it so much. And so it was one of those things where I think as we're touring around and making those connections, that was kind of, that was the most important thing. Just to make sure that we did that. It's interesting because when we would go to different cities, sometimes you would have a really cool person who would say, let me take you and see, the trains in Nebraska or something, or, the largest cheetah or whatever it might be. And so we would see that, but you do kind of tend to just see the inside of hotels.
Yeah.
And, the inside of a plane, or for us when you start, the inside of a van, wherever it might be. And as you go, though, it's been so much better. Because at some point you get to, I think, a point in your business or in your career where you're like, okay, we don't have to take every single show. We can be a little more selective, and we can plan a little more time. And it's not driving through the night to get to the noon show at a community college. It's, okay, we have a show tonight in a theater. We have a day off, another one in a theater. Like, for instance, tonight I'm in St. Louis, and I was just walking around. I was like, where's the best barbecue place in St. Louis? And I'm kind of near the Arch, so I was just going to walk down there. And I was like, when do I usually get a chance to do this? Probably never. But last night I was in Peoria, and I'm in St. Louis tonight, and tomorrow I'm in somewhere in southern Missouri. No, maybe it's not southern. Joplin. I don't know. I just go wherever they tell me.
Yeah. Wherever you're told to go, you go. Yeah, a lot of touring for the past 20 plus years for you. That's so crazy.
Yes.
When it comes to this final tour, what makes it a can't miss experience? Are there any surprises that you guys have in store? Are you going to go back into that old catalog, bring out the Lion King song, or what can people expect to see and hear?
Well, first off, you're going to be a special guest, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, we're going to work up a song. Well, let me know what you want to do. But Yeah, we definitely have been talking about trying to do songs from like every single album we've ever done, which is like 20 plus albums.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something we're like, oh, wow, we don't really do many songs off this, album. Let's do one off that. But we also put out a lot of social media just asking people what they'd like to hear. We have some new songs, of course. We may do, we were kind of known a little bit too for Christmas tours. So I don't know if we'll do a bit of a Christmas section. I think we don't want to make it, it will be, our normal thing was just a lot of energy, hopefully like talking to people and just having kind of a ball. And I think we'll definitely stick with that. Like there won't be sad stories and we're not going to thank everybody, in our whole lives. And we can do that before the show or after the show. But I think the show will just be kind of a celebration. It's what we're trying to hope for. And just like one more time on stage with your friends and just celebrating with all the people that have just given us a wonderful life. Because right now I'm touring with a big band. I started just to raise money for schools. Music in schools is really important to me. And it's given me the chance to do that. Like in a lot of ways, it gave me the time and the contacts and stuff to do this. So in the last 2 years, when the other guys were like, not big fans of being on the road, we'd kind of just said, hey, we just need a break. For me, I'm like, I love being on the road. So being in the big band, it gave me a perfect chance to go, well, I've never gotten to sing overseas. I've never gotten to do something with an orchestra. I've never gotten to do a club. And so I get to do all of these adventures. And part of it is due to Tonic Sol-Fa.
Yeah. That was something I was going to ask. Shaun Johnson, the big band experience has come through the St. Cloud area for the past couple of years. Usually it's around Christmas time. After this Tonic Sol-Fa tour, you're going to continue, right? As with the Shaun Johnson big band experience?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. I've been writing some songs with HBO. I've been, like I said, touring with a big band, which I just love. I always wanted to be in like some sort of big band. I know nothing about jazz. I think sometimes that people scare it because they're like, oh, it's a jazz group. What, who listens to jazz? I actually don't. But I just kind of I love a group. Their name is Lake Street Dive. Do you know who that is?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I love Lake Street Dive. They're considered like jazz pop, right? That's their thing. And I'm like, oh man, I just really like that. I like singer-songwriters. I just wanted to do something like that. And like I said, give back to all the people that have given me so much, and especially music in schools, because the whole reason this started is because of a director in high school for me. And so it's just been so fun and a little bit more freeing because it's not like it's my job. It's just something that we're getting to do. And it's just a kind of a cool thing to do. I'm going back to law school at the same time because I always wanted to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer. I just want to have the law degree.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm doing that. So I actually don't really know, but I haven't known for a couple of years. I mean, I'm in a fortunate position in that way, but I just want to, I guess, have adventures, which sounds so terrible, probably like. But I'm very lucky in that way, and I just want to keep writing songs with people I know, and doing things I never thought that would be possible, and that's just kind of my hope. So I will keep doing that. In what way, I'm not sure, but I do probably want to sing as long as people show up. I would sing till I was, if I was lucky enough to be 105, I would sing till then.
Yeah, well,
and if no one shows up, then you're like, I probably have to give it up.
You can still sing in your home, right? You can get a
right.
Do the karaoke. Just go to a dive bar, right?
Exactly.
You'll make people listen to you.
Stinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, the end of an era tour. You said the first date in St. Cloud. That's coming up in April, right?
Yeah, on April 1st. That is the date in St. Cloud. Just announced. The tickets go on sale on February 14th.
All right. Perfect. And then you've got a couple other tour dates down in Minnesota. You're in Burnsville. I know you're in a couple other states as well. Most of our people are from Minnesota, so those are probably the more important dates for them. Burnsville, the first show, sold out right away, so make sure you get tickets to either that second show or, again, St. Cloud. I wouldn't be shocked if those tickets sold out right away as well, so get on that. And also, if people want to follow you on socials, how would they find you?
Yeah, the easiest thing is just to look up my name. You can look up Shaun Johnson Music. Shaun is Shaun. Some people look up with a W, and then you'll get the gymnast from Iowa. So I don't think she sings at this point, but if you look up Shaun Johnson Music, it will take you there. You can look up Tonic Sol-Fa. They all go to the same place. And if you're on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or any of those things, we're kind of always releasing new music and kind of showing behind the scenes and some stuff about family. A lot of people have 3 daughters, so we get into some of that. And so, yeah, definitely check all that out. You can see all of our latest videos and news and just things that are happening before other people know.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Shaun, for joining the Unveiled Local Hidden Gems podcast, being our first guest on our very first episode.
Thank you.
It's amazing to see just how much impact their music has had, and can't wait to see them take the stage one last time. Tonic Sol-Fa, End of an Era Tour. Again, if you want to experience this unforgettable farewell tour for yourself, be sure to grab your tickets now. Some shows, as we've mentioned, have already sold out. You can find all the tour dates and ticket info at ShaunJohnsonMusic.com/tonic-sol-fa. And if you want to stay connected with Shaun, make sure you find him on all the different social platforms, Shaun Johnson Music. That is SHAUN Johnson Music. Thanks so much for listening to Unveiled Local Hidden Gems, the podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, keep discovering, and find more hidden gems at unveiledlocal.com.